From Senegal to Sugar Hill, trace the bloodline. 100 years of brilliance through the color line. They thought the shackles broke but kept the mental chain. Langston penned the future while they legislated pain. Harlem's ballrooms birthed the cosmos in mahogany, while lynching trees still decorated southern botany. Josephine, Waker's pearls, and Garvey's Navy ships. Du Bois debating destiny with scholarship on his lips. The Renaissance was a renaissance, it was resistance, fam. Every trumpet blast from Armstrong was a battering ram. They gave us minstrel shows, we gave them Sora Neal. Turned depression into art, made the fabricated real. Cotton Club excluded us from tables every set. Performed the Deanest nightly, never free from the deck. But Bessie Smith could shatter glass, shatter cash, shatter lies. Every note she sang contained a revolution in the sky. Build temples from the rubble, make cathedrals from the struggle. Turn the margins to the center, now they study what we scribble. We build temples from the rubble, every generation double the inheritance of genius that they try to keep us from. Fast forward through the decades, watch the pattern reassemble. Malcolm's speeches, Martin's marches, every voice begins to tremble to the earth until the structure shows its fractures. FBI was tracking every coon with every pastor, every actor. 40 acres never came but 40 minutes on a stage. To reconvene your consciousness and channelize the rage. From bebop to hip-hop, the fool lines mathematical. Each generation weaponized the beautiful, the radical. They gave us Reagan out as crack and mass incarceration. We gave them Public Enemy and blueprints for liberation. The Harlem Renaissance never ended, just evolved its form. Every freestyle cipher is a brainstorm, is a storm. Where the children of the talented, the tenth that was prophesied, inherit the fire that the water couldn't wash aside. They tried to write us out the narrative. We offered all on text, 100 years of proof, and that we're destined. Where was next? Temples from the rubble, made cathedrals from the struggle. Turned the largest to the center, now they study what we scribble. We built temples from the rubble, every generation double the inheritance of genius that they tried to keep us from.
All right. This is, and you are Under the Groove. Welcome everybody to Under the Groove Podcast. Like, share, follow, subscribe, man. For sure, for sure. Let's get it in, man. Need that assistance and that support in that regard. Other than that, man, hey, let's get into it. I kind of want to pick up where we left off yesterday, but at the same time, I don't remember it all. Can't go back to the comments. They're gone, but that's all right. That's fine. We have today, here I am and there you are. So let's do what we do, on any day. Coming to this get down, man. All right, Lisa Mar, I see you up in here, sister. Front and center. Appreciate you. Appreciate you in a real way. Grand Rising, Brother Bub, blessings to you and the family. Blessings and love to the kings and queens in the Royal Group congregation. B1 is Black first. No doubt about that. It's a new day, everybody. It's a new day. Happy Tuesday, Grand Rising, and all that stuff. And I would like to think that each and every one of you who are tapping in, who will tap in, has made the best of today. Take advantage of it, man. Because I'm telling you, tomorrow, there's no guarantees. There aren't any guarantees. And the way the world is, shit, we could be on the countdown. Nobody knows. But, that being said, let's make the best of it. Good to see you up in here, Lisa. I got some stuff lined up. My computer been acting up today. I don't know why, but it has. I'm trying to figure out what's the problem. I don't see any glitches or nothing, but it's been kind of buffering. Let me put it like that. It's been buffering. I don't know why, but it has been. In any respect, we're gonna keep on. The show must go on, as they say. So here I am. Shit. Nonetheless, got a couple of things I wanted to drop. One in particular about this country, and the reason why we see a lot of what's going on in terms of the disregard for law, the Constitution, and shit like that. There's something to all that. Anytime you get a sitting president that doesn't respect the Constitution and or the law, something's up. They know something we don't know. And yet, we talked about this last week, how those in power will push us to follow the letter of the law, while at the same time, they make sure that it doesn't apply to them. There's always this double standard in the world. We see this. We grew up knowing this. Sometimes we have parents do it. They say, do as I say, not as I do type shit. It's all these double standards. But the fact of the matter is they exist. Why? I can't really say, I can't call it. But the fact of the matter is they do exist, these double standards. What do we do about that? What do we do about that? How do we overcome that? Some of us will become emotional, and we think emotionally we can settle our problems, you know what I mean, or find resolutions or solutions to these issues. Then there are some of us who tend to think that, well, use my intellect. Let me see if I can overcome it that way. And for the most part, what you have is, uh, a confrontation of intellects, you know what I mean, intelligence. Some people might be on this side of the fence saying, well, we look at it like this because that's what it says, and this side be like, no, no, no. There's that clash always. And then there's wisdom. Now, wisdom, I don't know. The only thing can contest wisdom is wisdom. So wisdom really don't have what do you call it? An adversary. Not for real. Think about it. There's nothing to combat wisdom. Who in their right mind would want to do that? Off the bat, we know that's not wise. So there's no nemesis, so to speak, or uh, adversary for wisdom. I mean, unless you just want to call it ignorance or just being dumb or plumb stupid. That is. But in this life, man, this world we live in, man, I think that it takes a little bit of all three. You know what I mean? You're gonna either be wise about some shit, you're gonna use your mind, your head, you know what I mean, or you're just gonna go about things, emotionally, and hopefully emotionally you'll get some shit done. Which I'll be the first to tell you it ain't gonna work. It ain't gonna work. I was an emotional person, an individual, for a long time. I understand that now, and I see that now. I've tried to make that transition. I've made that transition from being emotional, an emotional being, man especially, to one that tries to use his head. You know what I mean? Use some intellect, learn some shit so that I can apply it. And oftentimes I find that that's not always the solution. And then there's wisdom, you know what I mean? And that I think is just, one, looking at a situation, you know what I mean? Um, Looking at it, the face of something and being able to discern, okay, what's the best choice? What is wise in dealing with a situation that may not be to your, benefit, your liking or whatever? How do we deal about that? You want to deal with that or go by dealing with that wisely. You know what I mean? There ain't no doubts about that, And sometimes wisdom tells you, okay, this fight, I ain't gonna win this one. I ain't gonna win this one. So wisdom said, okay, pick your battles, choose your battles. And that's what I think most of us we've come to learn. You know what I mean? All wars, all fights, all battles aren't necessarily the ones we should be partaking in because they're not always going to turn out the way we want them to, especially if someone got or has an upper hand or a better position than you. What they say, it's a good run beats a bad loss any day. You know what I mean? So yeah, wisdom will provide us an opportunity to say, okay, look at the situation, say, okay, yeah, I got enough sense. I'm wise enough to know this is not something I'm going to win at. So let me fall back. Let me go prepared, get that, learn some shit before I come back and confront this. So I'm at the stage now. Well, yeah, there's intellect. I try to use it as best I can, but then I understand that ain't always going to be, the end road to succeeding, to accomplishing something. Just because I'm using my intellect, you know what I mean? Sometimes it takes wise moves, wise thoughts, words, and actions to get some shit done. So that's where I'm at with that. Other than that, man, each one, to each his own. This is what we hear often also, but you take that with a grain of salt as well. Never know. That in that three, there's one that's gonna fit some of everybody. You know what I'm saying? It takes all kinds, you know what I mean, to make the world go round. There's that emotional aspect, that intellectual aspect, and there's that wisdom, So, hey, you choose. You choose what's best for you. There it is. And I tend to try to do that daily. Sometimes, it's just wise not to say something, not to do something, whatever. Yeah, there it is. But today, let's be wise about how we spend our time. All right. Let's have these discussions, these debates, have these topics, man. And hey, let's delve through them. Let's chop them up. Let's dissect them and hey, try to get something from it. I think that would be the wise thing to do. Other than that, shit, make sure I got these clips before I jump in on these clips. I'm going to do these comments like we normally do. But again, there's something going on with my laptop. I don't know what it is, but we'll get to that. I'm not going to really worry about it right now. What we got? All right, B60. I see you, loved one. Say greetings and salutations to you, bub, and the RGC B1. Black first, everybody. All right, Antonio, love and salute. Queen Nzinga's in the house. She say peace and blessings. RGC today. Challenge yourself to encourage someone. Listen without judgment and leave every space a little better than you found it. Black first. Good advice. Wise advice, in fact. In that part where she just said, listen without judgment is something I was dealing with Sunday, sitting with Yacinda, our mental hygienist. That was something she was advising. You know, when we're talking to individuals who seem to be going through some shit that we may not even understand or comprehend, the best thing for us to do in that respect or in that type of situation is to just listen. Just pay attention, you know what I'm saying, and try to pick up keywords and phrases this person is talking about that seem to mean something to that person. And if you're going to respond, try to use those keywords, those words that would seem to be in support of what this individual is talking about. You know, ask those questions with those keywords or those phrases, you know what I mean? But great advice, wise advice, Queen Nzinga. Thank you for that. Listen without judgment, everybody. Listen without judgment. You're going to learn something. You may learn something. Lisa Moore said, hey, Queen. She hollering at you, Queen Nzinga. Blessings to you, sis. It's always good to see you. Keep spitting that real shit. All right, I'm paraphrasing here. All right, Chris, what it do, man? B1 Black first, and this is RGC that's in the house. They're always front and center before anyone else, and they, very not often, but there are those occasions when we have people that are not normally in RGC every time we come on the air, but they're there, and they'll pop in, boom, and hang out with us, so we look forward to all that as well. But it's always the RGC first, and that's appreciated from each and every one of you. I'm trying to see whether or not I want to even try this damn thing because, that's a roll on it. Something ain't right about this thing today. All right. We're going to get to it, though. So everybody hang tight. 1 second, you guys. 1 second. I'm trying to get everything in order. Stop it. All right. What's this? Okay, that ain't working. Okay, boom. Right back to where we started. All right, good to see you up in here, Chris. Like I say, all right, Hoover Sniper, how you doing, bro? Hawa. Good to see you up in here, man. Good to see you up in here. So I started out talking about the government, man, and how I tend to think that we're being manipulated by it. You know what I mean? I tend to always refer to this government as a corporation. Some would call it not that. Some wouldn't even call it a government. Some would call it some type of a contractual get out, man, that is ran by powers that we don't see, we don't know specifically. In fact, they're not even here in these United States. Be that as it may, we're still caught up in a system that just gives a flying flick about any of us. They have us, again, following laws and rules that they themselves don't follow or respect. The Constitution is just a piece of paper, from what I understand and what I've, been reading up on lately. Is not even the original Constitution, for whatever reason, it's been replaced, usurped, or whatever. I don't know how true that is, but that is the allegation. At this stage, that's neither here nor there. I don't think any of that matters. You know what I mean? I think that what matters is the people being in the state of mind where they get to the point where they learn how to govern themselves. See, when we depend on people to do shit for us, then also what we're doing is we're putting ourselves at the mercy of someone who may not give a flying flick about you. You know what I mean? They'll see you as a come up, as something to be exploited, manipulated, and or used. So I think there's the danger in that when we allow ourselves to become dependent upon a certain structure for leadership, guidance, and authority, we're putting ourselves at the mercy of that get out, man, and it ain't always good. You know what I mean? If we could just, we all step back and look at the situation now, we see that, it's right before our eyes, it's in our faces. This whole situation it has nothing to do with you, me, or the people. If you ain't in that class, you know what I mean? If you're not in the higher echelons of whatever that is that runs everything, then that means we are at the mercy of those who run and control everything. So yeah, let me drop this right quick because I found it very interesting. Hoover Snipe said facts, man, real spit, right? I found it interesting that, and I don't know how old this clip is. It looks kind of old if you ask me, but I'm not sure in terms of how long it's been around. But I think however long it's been around, it's paramount. It's still it fits. It fits in terms of what we see taking place today and what's going on in the world today. So let me drop that right quick and then come on back and have our conversation. Did it leave me? There you go. All right. Get more of this.
1871, the banks incorporated the United States and called the United States a corporation.
Okay, right quick. What banks? In 1871, what banks did this? And so there's that gap right there. I need, what banks? Were they European banks? Were they British banks? Were they Italian banks, Spanish banks? What banks? If we get that information, was it the Vatican Bank? I don't know, but that would be some good information if she would impart that, what bank she's talking about.
And when they created the District of Columbia, what they did was they put that corporation in the District of Columbia. And they said that the members of Congress were actually managers of that corporation. And they said the president of the United States was actually the president of that corporation. So we're not living in the country that we think we're living in. And what I've actually done is I have said that we are under something called state capture. And I have said that there is an interregnum. And if you look that word up, that means that we don't have a legitimate government. And when the founding fathers wrote this Constitution, they realized that the bankers were trying to pull a fast one on us and to try to take over our governance. And so they put in a safety mechanism. And there's something called Article 5, which says that when 2/3 of the state legislatures request an amendment, that the Congress is required to convene a constitution to consider amendments. And the Congress was supposed to do that back in 1929. They've been in contempt of the American people. They haven't given us the opportunity to get our original Constitution back. They haven't even told us that we are not operating under our original Constitution. They've been lying to us.
So then it's safe to say, I think, that the banks have taken over, that the banks actually won whatever battle that was. They are in control. And then you look at Congress, you could tell that Congress don't care about none of what the people talk about. They string us along with this idea, this fantasy that we have something to do with putting individuals in seats of power so that they can do the bidding for the people. By now, anybody who votes should realize that's a bunch of crap. When you go or you look at politics, especially state capital as DC, only thing that's happening there is the circulation of money changing hands. That to me is an indication that the so-called government is actually functioning as a bank where, Only thing that matters is money, not the people. You know, damn what the people say, you know what, but hey, we got this money, let this money do the talking for us. That's why you have these lobbies, these corporations, you know, these countries, you know, that come and lobby for whatever they want, you know. So to me, it's an exchange type of system going on. It's almost like a banking system in terms of, you know, the Constitution and we the people, for the people, by the people, all that shit. Yeah, that shit is dead and gone. You know, I don't think that exists at all anymore. I think, again, we're under control of banks. What banks, though? Again, I don't know who runs them. I don't know, but we can all guess. We can allege, you know, who that bank or those banks are. You know, again, it could be the Vatican because, truth be told, they got a bank too. You know, one thing for certain, though. One thing for certain, we ain't got no power, man. We have no power. We're being misled and hoodwinked in the sense that we're being told, hey, we have the power. We can decide whatever. We were just talking about last week, the Counterterrorism Act of 2026 and how they fashioned it in such a way that if you disagree with government, you disagree with fascism, you disagree with Israel, and if you're pro people, BLM, Palestine, anything like that, then you are a terrorist. What does that tell you? You know, most of us, we're not seeing this big picture, you know, and there's so much going on, so much so that, you know, they got us all over the place. That so much is going on means that there are so many distractions lay before the people to where we cannot really get it together in terms of having a system that actually is for the people. You know, this is why we have all these problems. And everyone knows, yeah, one of the ways to make money and keep people in their places to have them fighting with each other and not focused on those who creating the real problems, you know. Sad thing, man, but true. This is actually happening. You know, our government has figured out ways to keep the people working hard, paying bills, and at each other's throats, while those who creating all these problems, they live in the lap of luxury. You know, and they don't have to abide by the rules. They can go and abduct as many kids as they like, as many people as they like, extract their internal organs from them, do what they wish, experiment, you know, ruin, ruin, you know, the climate for one, the ecosystem, you know, pollute the rivers, the lakes, the oceans, the seas, tear down the forests, you know, just all kind of shit they can do without having to worry about repercussions and consequences. You know, they murder freely. You know what I mean? This shit is crazy. This shit is crazy. But it is happening, you know, and for any of us to think, yeah, we got these issues, man, and these issues are front and center with us because this is what's been put before us. So we don't know how to really, you know, get out of these situations other than to deal with them or what we think to be real life issues with other people, you know, rather than, hey, man, not really pay attention to that and get control of our own situation so that we can really do battle with those who are really running everything and keeping everything messed up or the way it is. It's a cold system. It's a cold system. Who would snipe say, yes, European, the World Bank. Yeah, there's the World Bank. There is the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank. But who is the World Bank? And is that really the one? You know, I think that's the one that just serves and services, you know, countries who have people that, you know, they utilize, they exploit, you know, they manipulate to work for them, you know, make the money that they need. I think there's a bank above the World Bank. You know what I mean? I just do. But who runs it? That's the question. Who really runs it? And for any of us to think, oh, it's the World Bank, they run. No, man. Don't fool yourself. Do not fool yourself. It's always going to be something above that. You know what I mean? And because that's what they do to make it harder for us to trace. You know, we find out, oh, the World Bank is under, you know, the Universal Bank. You know what I mean? And we find out that the universal bank is under the galaxy bank or whatever. You know what I mean? We're never going to actually get to that unless, when we get past the distractions and shit, then we can focus on that real shit to give us answers, especially those answers we need. Until then, man, we will continue to go and be tripping on the shit we're tripping on, while all the while we're still in the same place. We're not moving forward. We're not elevating. You know what I mean? We really aren't. We are given the impression that we are. We're given the impression that we're empowering ourselves by, saying, okay, we're going to not spend our money with these people, but spend it with ourselves. We're going to Black empowerment, go to Asian empowerment, Latino empowerment, whatever. But I think that's all a ploy. That's all a strategy, put in place by those who run everything. You know what I mean? I think, again, I've said this as often as I can. We're going about this the wrong way. We're going about this the wrong way. In order to really defeat the World Bank or whoever the hell it is, man, is to stop. Is to stop participating in the transit, in how the system works. The system works a certain way to accumulate, to gather, to get money, to get labor, and then get money as a result. Only way to really break that cycle, that system, is to stop allowing yourself to be used as labor and fattening the pockets of those who run the World Bank or whatever. Man. Some serious shit, if you ask me. Some serious shit, but no one, again, I think in terms of how they've indoctrinated many of us, the first thing we think when it's suggested that we fall back and do not partake, we unplug from what we know to be an unjust system. The first thing we get to thinking about, well, oh shit, man, well, how am I going to eat? This is how they got us. They got us. And we have to admit that as a people. I don't care what ethnicity you are, whether you're melanated or not, they got everybody like that. First thought that most of us have is, how I'm going to pay my bills. What am I going to eat? How am I going to eat? How am I going to get water, fuel, how I'm going to keep the roof over my head, shoes on my feet. That's what they got us caught up in. And this is how they continue to win. There are some that say, hey, man, the only way to beat the system is to unplug from it. And that's true. The only thing people who run shit is, the only thing they understand is that bottom line being affected. And that bottom line for most of them is money, wealth. Wealth to them brings power. So if you throw a wrench in that, then wealth stops to a trickle, just all together. Oh shit. Again, man, that's leverage. But we don't, we do not know how to use leverage accordingly or appropriately. Again, we're stuck in this indoctrinated mindset to where we have to do the things we're doing to keep the system going because we're attached to it. We think that if we don't, we won't survive. That's bullshit. That's bullshit, That's the part of what I'm talking about. We haven't come to understand or even appreciate to some degree. We talk about these things in terms of survival, these things in terms of being independent. And the most independence you need, the independence that matter more than anything, is that ability to be able to feed yourself. That's it. That's it, because that's what you really need to keep going. Nourishment. You need that. Food and water. You need that. And again, we've been led to believe that we can't feed ourselves without these corporations trucking in food to these warehouses, these box stores where we go and we go to work to get the money, take the money to buy the food. We depend on these people, man, for everything. For everything. We've been led to believe that we cannot sustain ourselves without big corporations, without the government. We have to be dependent on them, because if we aren't, we will starve. That's a cold game being played. That is a cold game being played. I need some water. It is hot. I got my fan on, but it ain't really working. But yeah, that's the situation, man, if you think about it. You know, and when you think about it, you know, you think about what's really, when you really think about it, it's scary. It's scary in terms of what really needs to be done, what should be done, because this is uncharted, you know, territory. You know, this is a frontier no one has really been on. So we don't really know the outcome. And that's fear. That generates fear, doubt, you know, uncertainty. You know, we know for a fact if I keep working and paying these bills, then, you know, giving them my money, I'm going to be able to get some food in return from them, water. You know, I'll get to keep the roof over my head. They'll let me keep it. And so for a lot of us, that's security, that's stability. You know, when we're not really realizing that, you know, that is all that is dependence. That's dependence, you know, that's not freedom. You know, that's nowhere near what freedom is really about. Nowhere near. In a lot of our communities, we live in food deserts. Again, big box stores or these warehouses made to look like stores that store food for us to purchase. You know, if they didn't truck in the food to get the money they want from us, you know, because they know we need to eat, they stop that. Most of us in these communities would perish. We would perish in 6 months, you know. In 6 months, we'd be yeah, really gone, doing very bad. And this is what they want. That's a cold situation. Thank you. That is a cold situation. That's a harsh reality. We live in food deserts, water deserts, all kind of whatever you name it. We exist in it. And we're dependent upon everything we get. We raise our children and our children's children to be dependent upon a system, again, that each and every one of us knows is no good. It's corrupt. It's rotten to the core. And yet we still, you know, we participate. You know, it's crazy because, see, we have issues with what's going on in our communities, right? You know, our young brothers and sisters game banging, living that life, you know, we all know, oh, this is bad. Y'all got to stop this, da, 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 da. You know, we see what the detriment attached to it, and we're against it fully. So much so we have discussions to find solutions to end this problem, while at the same time, we're living in a system that's worse, that's doing us worse, that's worse than what we see taking place in our communities. And yet we don't approach that with the same energy, you know, with the same discussions. We don't apply or, you know, give that same time and energy to that issue, you know. Yeah, that's a problem in the community. But if you think about it, that's the bigger problem, because that problem that's over there, that's huger, is really what fertilizes and nurtures this bullshit we see taking place in our communities. You know, this man, and we need to see that, you know. But again, how can we, you know, we can't see the forest for the trees when we got all this shit going on. You know what I mean? We got all this shit going on. I think it's some crazy work, man. It's some crazy work, and things won't necessarily change. Even we tend to think about the struggles, the things that our people went through to get what they say we've accomplished, you know. You know, if you ask me, I say, man, we ain't got shit. Ain't shit really changed, you know what I mean? But our people put in work for shit that they believed, you know, brought about something different, you know, something, you know, that was a lot less pressing, you know what I mean? That gives them a little more room to breathe and to move around. Okay, we get that. But the fact of the matter is, man, our people did all that for what? Because here we are. You know what I mean? Here we are. And in fact, we actually haven't evolved or reached any status, you know, or place in the world or society that points to progress on a whole. You know, again, so, you know, yeah, our brother and our sister may elevate, but what is that when they're up there and we're still here? You know, and if you look back through time, that it was the same picture. We had brothers and sisters in the 20th century, the 19th century, the 18th century, who had the wherewithal and who had access to, certain things and people. And yet their people were still, in the same position we're still in. So those classes still exist. You know what I mean? Those types of individuals still exist, just as we still exist, And the crazy thing is that for some of them, they come from or cut from the same cloth as those of us who are still a part of the pattern. You know what I mean? They come from that, but they've moved on. They've been, and again, I was saying to you guys yesterday, we have to look, speak truth to power. We talk about, oh man, my brothers and they got all this money and they ain't doing this and they ain't doing that. Yeah. But think about it. Think about it. They're in a trap too. They're living, in illusion. Oh yeah, granted, they can go and pretty much purchase anything they want. Right? But they are still dependent. They're not free. They're not free to really speak their minds and say, hey, man, this is a messed up system. I don't like it. In fact, what I want to do is go and get all my other brothers and sisters who are billionaires, and we're going to put this money together. And what we're going to do is we're going to establish A, B, and C for our people. Guess what's going to happen to them within a week's time or less? All right? They know it. They know it. So, the acknowledgement is that they recognize what side their bread is buttered on. So they're dependent, on them people, to keep what they have. Again, there's no spook sitting by those doors. You know what I mean? There's no grand scheme being put down that's gonna, get the people up, make them rise up and rebel. Overthrow some shit, because the truth of the matter is shit needs to be overthrown. But ain't nobody willing to say that or do that. We all are sitting comfortably waiting for some shit to happen to us, rather than saying, hey man, we see what this shit, we know this music. We've seen this picture before. Fuck that. That ain't happening, man. And that's what's scary. That's what should be scary to each and every one of us. Because if we're reacting like that now, then guess what? A decade or 2 or 3 or 4 from now, be the same mindset. Because no one is willing to detach, to disconnect, to rise up. Everyone has accepted their lot, their station, and that's what the reality is. That's what the reality is. And that reality is created by them, not by us. I don't know. I'm just saying. Oh, that water's good. Yeah. So, there that is, man. I'm just saying. I'm just saying, man. If we really want to think about some shit, we really want to talk about those things that matter. If we really want to be talking about freedom, if we really want to be talking about independence, then the only way for any of that to actually exist is to get up from under the heel and the thumb of others. That's a fact. That's a fact. That's a fucking fact, man. And until that happens, this is where we'll be, face to the ground on the dirt with somebody's heel on your head or your neck. And you're depending on them not to break it, not to take the life from you, That's it. That's the truth, man, whether you believe it or not. Anyway, Rakufu, what it do, loved one? You say word for the day, man, is imperiousness. I hope I said that right. Imperiousness. All right. It's a noun, you say. Imperiousness is the quality of exercising commanding, dominant, or sovereign authority, often in a way that expects unquestioning obedience. Imperiousness. And I hope I'm saying that. I know I'm saying that right. I don't know why I keep doubting myself, but they are imperiousness. So now that means again, great word, in fact, especially in the line of what what's being talked about right now. We're very obedient, though we like to tend to think that we're bucking the system. And in reality, we're not, because if we really were, let me tell y'all something. Them people, man, it'd be martial law and everything else jumping off. It'd be war. It'd be urban warfare in the streets. But since we're being so obedient, and we're not really questioning what we know is wrong and corrupt, they don't need to send nobody, because what they put in place is working. What they put in place is working. It's working well. They don't need to change anything. The playbook is old. That playbook that they function from, it's been around a very, very long time, And like I say, every now and then they'll tweak a little this, tweak a little that, refine it, revise it even, make some amendments to it and shit. But that playbook, man, that's an old volume, man. That thing, it got a little bit of everything in it, a little bit of everything in it. And you got to know that. You got to know that. Imperiousness. That's, I don't know, man. I don't know. We're in a situation, man. That's what I do know. And the more I think about it, the more I tend to come to realize that, it's gonna be there, man. This is a fight just to get out of this situation, man. This is gonna be a fight, So either we're gonna continue to be good, good children, good boys and girls, not question nothing, and remain obedient, remain dependent, or we're not. If we remain if we remain obedient, subservient, no other way to really put that, everything's going to go according to their plan. If we should decide to rise up and say, hey, you know what, this is not working for us any longer, it's time to do away with this, they'll know it, and we'll see their actions as a result of, we'll see that. We'll see that, and if we ain't paying attention to it now, it's only because we're so distracted with a lot of other, I don't want to call it minute or frivol, because a lot of this shit is serious, so much so to the point where, it's distracting enough, because if we worry, they got us worrying about each other more than worrying about what the system is doing to us, and you got to legitimize that. We're human beings, I don't know, man. I'm on what I'm on, man. And to be quite honest with you, I don't have a problem with it. I really don't. Like I said, a lot of us come from a different class. A lot of us grew up, in those times where, for real, where poverty was real. Poverty got a different face now. You could be poor, but, man, motherfucker wouldn't know it. You can pair, Air Force Ones on, name jeans, you got a little gold chain. I don't know if it's real or not, but, you just, back then, poverty was something you couldn't fake. You couldn't make poverty look like it wasn't poverty. You know what I mean? You just couldn't. Those who know what I'm talking about know exactly what I'm talking about, But again, things have changed again. Well, things have changed because, again, they've tweaked it. Yeah, our kids, man, our children, our young brothers and sisters, they're hungry in the streets. You know? Yeah. Some of them ain't got nowhere to go, man. They ain't got no hope, man. They ain't got a dollar. You know, so we see, that in how they carry themselves, the things they do to get one, the things they do to eat, the things they do to bring not necessarily, shame to themselves, but what they want to call, what they label dignity, and they wear that different nowadays as well, But back in the day, being poor was being poor. Straight up, man, and you couldn't disguise it. You couldn't disguise it, you couldn't disguise it, shit. That was the system. That was the system then, and believe it or not, that's the system now. It works it functions a certain way to keep us in a position where, man, we are at its mercy. If the system says, okay, let's make them suffer, let's inflate everything, let's raise the price, let's make it hard, let's make it hard. Let's raise the prices on everything, and we'll do this for a year. Let's bring them down a couple of pegs. They'll do that, they'll do that, and shit, man. Some will then begin to know, okay, whoa, shit, we really ain't got no money, you'll begin to realize that shit. And then there are times they say, okay, man, level it out. Let them save a couple of thousand, a few thousand, Let's make them think that the system's working. These are the games, man, that are being played on us, man. While all along, again, them people are getting, them people fat cats, man. They make so much money that they go and invest this money into things that will keep them in power. That would keep them in power, That's what they do with their money. And if that means, destroying people, committing genocide, man, experimenting on people and shit, anything, man, that would keep them in that seat of power, they'll do that. And a lot of that is what they do. We just aren't able to identify it. When we talk about when Bill Gates is talked about, Bill Gates was a guy that dealt with computers, right? Computer programs, shit like that. All of a sudden now Bill Gates is a fucking scientist. Bill Gates deals in viruses, not computer viruses, man. Biological shit, man. Biological shit. What kind of madness is this, right? I'm just saying. We don't think about that type of shit. What the fuck is Bill Gates in biology for? Why is he dealing with viral diseases and shit? When did that happen? I'm just saying. See, that's what they own. That's what they're on. I'm just saying. Rakufu said the emperor's imperiousness left no doubt about who ruled the kingdom. You on one today, boy. I like that. Hoops Night said, absolutely. Queen Zingasalissimo, how are you today, Queen? All right. B Queen. She says, B Queen, welcome to this Get Down. First and foremost, as you should know, as you know, this is Under the Groove Podcast. And this is touching bases with the people every Monday through Friday, 6:15 to 8:15 or so. All right. This is where we come to get down with the Get Down and focus on the focus. You're more than welcome to be here. One thing we have that we keep intact amongst us is we can agree to disagree, but do it respectfully. Show some love and respect up in this Get Down. That's all we ask. If you hang around long enough, you'll notice ain't no N words, ain't no B's and all this sort of stuff. I may every now and then say motherfucker, and I'm working on that. All right. But you're more than welcome to be here and jump in anytime you see fit, as you've done already. Peace and prosperity to you and your family. Welcome. Anyway, Queen, B Queen 6081 said it's so sad what we're doing to the Native American land. Yeah, it's so sad what's being done to our land, our ancestral land. That's a bad thing. That's a bad thing. You know, the environment is going to hell. And then it's going to go even quicker now that they are. See, here's where, again, they don't care about laws and shit or the people, the Constitution. And it shows in what they do and how they go about doing it. So firms, technology firms or corporations, they say, hey, well, we need data centers. We need space. And that space hopefully is near a lot of water because that's what we need, you know. We don't mind that they're near communities and they create a certain pollution, noise pollution, all kinds of pollutions, right? They drain, they siphon or use up quite a bit of water and electricity, you know, but they don't, you know, they don't care about that. They don't care about that. You know, they don't care that they're messing up the ecosystem. They don't care. You know, destroying habitats. You know, we have certain species that need, they, you know, they function the way they function. Some are nocturnal, some are not. You know, so you see some up in the day, you see some sleep at night. You know what I mean? You see some up at night, others sleep in the day. Yeah, that's just where it be. But what they're doing is going to disturb every bit of that. The ecosystem will be affected. You know, it will be affected. You know what I mean? Because they, you know, and just imagine what that, I don't know. I kind of got a feeling that would fuck with bees and beehives. You know, because they use certain frequencies when they do their thing. You know, they shit, you know, they, you know, you can't be disturbing certain species, man, that actually contribute to, you know, how this thing really works. You know what I mean? So I'm wondering about that. You know, I'm wondering about not only that, does it affect, you know, the ecosystem, the animals in it, the insects in it, but shit, do they even care? You know, I'm pretty sure they don't. But that's what it's come to, you know, that's what it's come to. So yeah, it's sad that they're destroying this land, you know, our ancestral land. Yeah, that's some sad shit. Chris say, man, it is some type, I guess you're saying type, some type of mafia system really calling the shots. But yeah, man, you know, think about the Vatican. The Vatican was probably the first mob, you know what I mean? The first mafia, you know what I mean? It's you know, it's in the region where the shit comes from, you know? So there it is. There's a possibility. Snipe say facts again. Get out there, get out of their system. Real spit, y'all. Chris said, man, they're running a mafia type system on us. Now here's one. In fact, there's two things, and I'm gonna name the second one. But B Queen said the food at the market does not look good. And again, we all know the difference, or at least we should. At least we should, you know. Um, what we need to know is this one thing: most of the food now is GMO, is genetically modified, and you could tell by when you slice open fruits and some vegetables that's supposed to have seeds. Seeds are non-existent. That right there lets you know it's been modified. You know, they are growing this to their specifications. They're removing the seeds. And I'm telling you, that is a detriment to the people in and of itself to not have seeds to replant. All right. Now, second thing is actually three. Um, they're producing food now. Food is now man-made, and there's a difference. There's what we call natural food, and then there's man-made food. Human produced, not human, man-made food produced by man. All right. In other words, it's not real. It comes, you know, it was created in a petri dish, or it's cloned, or you know, you know, shit. It could be plastic. You know, they make lettuce out of plastic now, and they'll sell it to your ass. You know, rice is plastic now. They'll sell it to your ass. They'll sell it to you. You know, um, That's some scary shit. So I was checking out something today where I think it was either the Netherlands or Switzerland. It was one of them. Sweden, it was one of them. They shipped to the United States hundreds of tons of food during the FIFA, the World Cup, because they don't trust American food. Now, when I first started saying some bullshit, but I thought about it, I said, no, that makes all the sense in the world, because do you not, you guys know, European countries do not import American food. The shit we eat, you can go to jail over there for selling that shit. And if that don't tell you something, I don't know what else to say. The shit we eat over here, it's against the law to sell over there. The cereals, a lot of the juices, all that, nah. They're not having none of that. So when I saw that in my feed today, initially I was like, what? Nah, then I thought about it, said, oh yeah, for sure. For sure. For sure. So again, this should tell us something, but we're not paying attention because, again, we're so distracted. If other parts of the world won't eat the same food we're eating, that should tell us something. That should tell us something. FDA just okayed Bill Gates again and another company to produce fake food, fake meat. Now, I don't know how fake it is, but, you know, if it ain't coming from, if it's not real poultry, beef, you know, those of you who eat meat, you know, then, and it's being produced, then it's fake, you know. And then, you know, a lot of us, or a lot of you who eat meat, don't even really know what you're eating. None of you could tell the difference between a real piece of steak and a piece of steak that's man-made. None of you, you know, not well, very few. Very few. Some of you don't even know if you're eating human beings. You don't know. Because it's crazy that it seems to be an acceptance that people eat human beings in the world today. And again, this is what boggles my mind. Nobody has stopped the world and said, what the fuck is going on? People are eating kids and shit and people. Ain't nobody saying shit. That's how you know. That's how you know we're under a spell. And you can call it what it is. We're under a spell. Yeah, appreciate that, B Queen. The food at the supermarkets does not look like food. You know? You remember how this some real shit right here. And I recall this, you know, way back when, whatever. A loaf of bread, you couldn't let it sit up too long. Because why? It would mold. You know what I mean? It would literally mold. And so you knew you had to eat that bread, you know, the heel and the front end, the heel and the back. It didn't matter. You ate that bread before it got old and mold. Hey, Trip, bread don't even mold like that anymore. Bread does not mold. Shit, you know, and I'm not fond of bread either. You know what I mean? I don't indulge in, you know, bread and, you know, a lot of other shit, you know, but hey, man, something's happening, man. Something is happening, man, and we tend to not give a damn about it because we're so caught up in just living from day to day. This is how good and how great they've worked us or have worked on us, you know? And I was saying last night, you know, for a lot of us who say, okay, we own property, we own our homes and all this, the reality is we don't. We don't. You know, real shit. You really don't, you know? And this is the game that's being played, you know, on us. This is the game being played on us. You know, we're led to believe a lot of fantasies, man. We're led to be delusional about a lot of shit. And people ought to know, wait a minute, man, if I went and spent my life, you know, putting into this land, you know, this home and all that, you mean to tell me it's not mine? Why isn't that enough to make some people, make everybody say, hey, fuck that? No, 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 no. Y'all go in there, get them 2/3 of the floor to, you know, the represents the reps together and change that. Make it where you can't touch it. The government can't touch it no matter what. You know, and nobody doing that. Ain't nobody doing that. And I'm telling y'all, man, if anybody say that the land is yours and they can't do nothing to you, take it from you, that's some bullshit. Straight up. That's some bullshit. Again, the people, you know, if we were a nation, then we have a leg or we have ground to stand on. You know what I mean? We're not. We're not. You know, so they can pretty much do what they please. I'm just saying. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Who Snipes say slavery? That's the word. Alive and well, man. It's alive and well. A lot of people would tell you, hey man, ain't no slavery. What the fuck you talking about, bub? Okay. All right, Fat Rat, what it do, loved one? He said, peace to you and the RGC, Big Bub. Right back to you, Fat Rat. Peace and prosperity to you and the people, man. To the PBGs, man. All love and respect, bro. To you and your family, most certainly, you know, most definitely and first and foremost. Good to see you up in and hanging out, bro. Sniper said, man, real talk, man. Lisa Moore said, damn devils. Yeah, something wrong with them. And, you know, again, we know these not good. Aren't good people. You know, they aren't human. You know what I mean? They aren't human. They may be the mankind persuasion, you know what I mean? You know, mankind, but they're not human. There's something wrong with them throughout their history. I'm sitting up watching, me and my wife was watching something, man. And if you get past the theatrical, the entertainment aspect of most of what we watch, and you start attaching it to circumstances and things that happen throughout the course of mankind or human beings, you be able to, like, you could connect that shit, like, oh shit, you know, oh shit, this is how, yeah, that's how they were, that's how they are. You know, we were watching some shit last night and night before, and then I'm like, damn, man, these some cold bastards. They've been doing this, man, since they come up out them caves and shit, or wherever the hell they came from, you know. And they haven't changed. One thing history tells us is that before they was doing any of this shit that they're doing to everybody else, they were doing to themselves. And to some extent, they still do. You know, they have this certain bloodlust, I think, man. You know, for real. You know, and that's something they're not going to be able to get over, man. You know, they're just wired different. You know, and I'm telling you guys, man, most of you already know this is not a good look for us. We're not supposed to be a part of this get down, y'all. That's just it. You know, that's it. I saw some also today where brothers and sisters are banding together next year or sometime later this year. They're going to start a new political party. I just, man, but anyway, they're going to start a new political party that's supposed to represent us. And I'm saying, you know, in my head, no, I'm actually speaking out loud as I'm watching it. I'm like, okay, and what the fuck is it going to be attached to? Or you know, what, you know, what foundation, you know, what platform do we do this on? Or are we going to play by their rules, this new political party? And if so, what do you expect to change? You know what I mean? How the hell do you expect to bring anything new or different to the people? And you're using these people's get out to profess or claim that you're going to bring change. And that shit just, I'm telling you, it messes with me, man. Because to me, that just, it's not logical. That's not logical. That doesn't make sense to me. You're in, you know, a country that's ran by white supremacy, the whole political apparatus, and yet you saying, okay, we're going to create a political group for us, and you're going to, prop that political group upon the foundation of this white supremacist political apparatus. You're going to instill it in there and expect what? I don't know. I'm just trying to get the understanding, man. I don't know. Shit. I don't know. I don't think it makes much sense to me. If you're not going to establish a political get out, a foundation built on politics that serve you and your people, not attached to no other political system, to do the thing, what it needs to do for the people, then that's folly. That's folly. You just playing, you killing, wasting time. If you're not willing to say, okay, we're not aligned in any shape, form, or fashion with the political apparatus that this country function on or under or as a result of. We're not a part of none of that. We're governing ourselves. If you're not going to do that, man, what the fuck are you talking about? See, this is some more of that bullshit. And they're quick. Look, man. All skin ain't kin, man. If you're not willing, if you're talking about making a move like that, but you're willing to do it within the apparatus or within the framework of the functioning of a system we know is corrupt, what the fuck are you? What the hell are you talking about? That don't make no damn sense. And it makes me. I'm the type of individual. You one of them people. You one of them people. You talking that black power shit and all that, and still you want to sidle up to these people being on the same playing field with them people. Man, that's some bullshit. That's some bullshit. Straight up. I don't know. Like it was bullshit when our people, and this is just my opinion, everybody. I don't mean, and I say it respectfully. When our people succumbed and went along with this goddamn integration shit, thinking that something was gonna change, the change was gonna come. Man, that was folly, man. That was bullshit. I mean, today proves it. It's 2026. Today proves that we were bamboozled. We were fooled again. Incorporating ourselves in a system that men never gave a flying flick about us anyway, but you did it because they changed the name. They put a different, sticker on it, removed the old one, segregation, racism, Jim Crow, all that shit, and put integration, say it's all inclusive. And we bought that shit. This 2026, man. This is over 60 years ago. Ain't shit changed. Now we have people talking about establishing a political party for what? To what end? And how is this going to be beneficial to the people if you're going to attach it to a system that we already know is corrupt? That don't make sense. It don't make sense. And I'm pretty sure people with Brother Bub, what do you suggest? I ain't told you what I thought. I told you what I think. I just said it. Oh, well, that's impossible. Really? They coming out the lips of a black person. That's impossible. I mean, you got to be kidding me. Nah. What it is I think people really in fear, man, of detaching themselves. Not just from the system, but from the people who regulate it. There's a sickness, man, in us, man, that prevents us from understanding what real healing is, man. The fuck we gonna get healed or become better, and we're in this disease or diseased nation and program and system. How do we get better? You can't heal like that, man. You just can't. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. I'm just saying, man. Monsanto's. Oh, they killing mugs, man. Monsanto's don't give a flying flick, and they make so much money. They'll sue us. You'll probably be dead before the shit get to court, You know what I mean? Yeah, all our products cause us cancer. Oh, you'll be dead before you can sue us, so we ain't got to worry about it. Go to the courts and, plead to the court. Hey, we're a business, we're a corporation. We help this country stay afloat. So, we can only afford maybe 10 billion. Look up Monsanto's. Look how much money they make, man. Look who they're connected to. And everybody they're connected to is corrupt and is poisoning not just, the land, the world, but the people. Don't give a damn, man. This shit crazy to me. I'm just saying. Amen. I'm just saying. Anyway, Fat Rat say, man, look, man, Bill Gates is interested in population control. All right. And biochemical warfare is the weapon of choice. Eating McDonald's, for instance. But we can't tell them that. All right. No, man, because they're hungry. They have to eat McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, all the, and the shit's so cheap. Well, not McDonald's really, but hey man, ain't nothing wrong with McDonald's. What you talking about? Hey man, did you get the memo? They finding DNA in McDonald's food. DNA in McDonald's food. But black people don't give a fuck. Don't care that, again, Bill Gates, you guys, is a tech guy. This guy now is involved in biochemical warfare. Thank you. Biotechnological experimentation, all kind of shit. Come on, man. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. I don't know. Yeah, the seeds, Monsanto's, man, they provide the seeds. In fact, American government uses these same seeds. American government get farmers. The farms that still exist ain't been touched by what Trump did in terms of tariffs and bans with China in terms, import and export and food and shit, or soybean, for instance, to China, billions of dollars. Farmers growing, actual soybean rather than, receiving the seeds from the government. So those farms that don't work in conjunction with the U.S. government, they put them out of business. They don't care how long that farm been in the family, how many generations, And I think that was also, something that was contrived to put a lot of farms out of business, because that's that land they need for a lot of data centers. When you see data centers coming up, they're coming up on a lot of old farmland. Just saying, crazy work, man. Crazy work. Bill Gates buying up water rights. How is that possible? How can you buy water rights? Help me make that make sense. The water's flowing from somewhere. What are you talking about, man? You have water rights. You're buying water rights to a stream, a lake, a river. The fuck? I don't know. You can't tell me something ain't wrong, man. Lisa Moore said, I saw that too, Brother Bub. I actually read it on Google. They ship tons of food out here because they didn't trust American food. Facts. That's what they did do. And again, if you just, go and check out what Europe says about American products, especially when we're talking about food and vegetables, and fruits. They don't fuck with it. They don't like it. You know, they're saying it is poison. That's what they're saying. It's poison. Listen, man. What is that? France and Italy, man, they eat. They eat all kind of shit. You don't see them people obese like that over there, like you see over here. You just don't. And they eat big portions. They drink their wines. They do their thing. They are not obese over there, man. They not like what you see over here, for sure. You know, for sure. But you know, I imagine that will soon change too. Well, I don't know. I did read somewhere where they have McDonald's. I don't know if they're franchised, but McDonald's and certain fast food places. But I know the menus are totally different. How they prepare them, what's in them, is totally different from what's served and sold here in the United States. That much I did read. But yeah, man, they not eating none of this shit. They're not eating none of this shit. When they buy their shit, they buy their shit from Ukraine and Russia, and where they pretty secure in the fact that it's not GMO. It ain't been tampered with. You know what I mean? If they're buying something from the United States in terms of something that they eat, I'm pretty sure they know for a fact, because they're testing it or whatnot, that it's legit. I just read some Ibrahim Traore in Burkina Faso, as well as Mali and Niger. They stopped receiving U.S. aid, the rice and all that shit. The government sending all these impoverished countries. They said, no, we don't want that shit no more. They pretty much said it's poison. Then they turned around and told Bill Gates and Melinda, y'all got to leave. Take your NGOs with you. So the United Nations, the EU, and the United States say, hey, man, what is this? What are y'all doing? Hey, But we over here, man, we've been very foolish, man, about what's really going on in our health. That's real. Lisa Moore says, let me read that again. I saw that too, Brother Bub. I actually read it on Google. They ship tons of food out here because they didn't trust American food. Facts. Sounds like damn agents to me. Just because they black don't mean they for us. Or you're talking about something else, though, and my bad for even mixing that comment in there like that. Working for the system. Yeah. So we're talking about, I need to find this political organization. It's a black organization, supposedly. And they're working to bring about a black political party, supposedly. I don't know. I'm just saying, but when I heard the shit and I thought about it, I said, this some bullshit. They ain't supposedly. I'm serious. I said, this some bullshit. They got the sister who's the spokesperson, the sister information or whatever, got a big afro, beautiful, fine sister, all natural. But the shit she talking about turned my stomach. I said, now this some bullshit. You guys are going to meet, come together, have a conference somewhere. I think it's it's Chicago, I think. Is it November? I think it's November. Anyway, to establish a black political party. What the fuck for? What the fuck for? Seriously, man. Rather than do that, why, just tell the people the truth, man. We got to do our own shit, y'all, and it can't be connected to nothing they do. And I'm letting y'all know right now that if we decide to do that, it's going to be, war going to be out in the open against us. Okay. Like it ain't already, like it hasn't been, So it makes me think sometimes that, okay, man, we got people be talking that shit, man, but they, can you imagine how many black CIA agents there are? FBI, NSA, shit like that. Can you imagine how many of our people work for those people to make sure their agenda or they, the plays from their playbook stay as is, nothing, goes, a foot goes wrong, you know, a lot. Try to imagine a lot. Try to imagine a lot of them, man. And the shit is scary. This shit's scary. Lisa Moore said, man, yep, working for the system. That's against color people. Lisa Moore also said the DNA in McDonald's food is the children that's missing. All right, they put their pictures on the back of the milk carton. You already know that's the realest though. These kids, man. Look, man, it's something I don't know, man. I'm trying to. I sit up sometime try to figure out where the hell they house all these kids every year, and I'm pretty sure they ain't in one location. But in any respect, you know, um, based on the statistics, 400,000 every year in the United States. And then there's another, let's say, 300,000 in Germany. And man, we're talking about over millions of kids worldwide that come up missing every year, every 1 year, millions. One, where are they housed? How the hell? Well, shit. Yeah. It's just like Iran has these tunnels that United States bunker bombs can't bust through, and destroy, what's ever in the mountain. It's the same way, and my point is the same way Iran can build these tunnels deep underground, same way they can do that here. And we did talk about that, and they have them here, tunnels that go from here to Alaska, here to South America, all underground without ever coming above, a ground. But they have these facilities, I'm pretty sure. You know, I don't know, man, how is possible that they haven't bust people, man, that I think that's they slip every day. They do shit every day. They get supposed to just not just get them caught and save the kids, but that whole ring, that whole human trafficking ring. You know what I mean? And there's so many of them. I've seen them, faces in the news. I'm not surprised, but I'm beginning to see more and more brothers and sisters involved in this type of get down. You know, man, I don't know. You know, but these kids, man, they're coming up missing the way they are, man. It is something to that shit. I saw something the other day where uh people, men and women who work on these docks where these containers are, they are prohibited to open the container, even if they hear noises, even if they hear bamming and screaming. They are prohibited from opening the containers. And I'm like, what the hell you mean? Most of these men have to be fathers, brothers, uncles, And you mean to tell me, okay, man, again, see, we're talking about how dependent on the system we are. So the first thing comes to, I think, to one of their minds is if I open this container and rescue or, save who's ever in there, I'm going to lose my job. That's some cold shit, man. That's a cold way to be. That you weigh a job over the life of, a child. That's some crazy shit to me. But it's happening. All these ports where these containers are, man, you got to know there are people in them being ready to be shipped off to Asia, Europe, even Africa, Australia, wherever people are, come on, man, this shit is not rocket science, man. But this is what's happening. This is what's happening, man. Fat Rat said, man, remember that Henry Kissinger report, the culling of 2 billion people, National Security Study Memorandum 200, NSSM 200. I'm going to have to go look at that one. But Kissinger, he was a cold one. I'm sure you know that, Fat Rat. He was a cold one. He was a cold one, man. Culling. Man. Oh, him and Nixon, him and Tricky Dick. Cold couple right there. They were way way worse than Dick Cheney and Bush. Did none of them beat old Tricky Dick and Kissinger. Man, national security. I'm going to read this one though. 200. All right. And so that would be the NSSM. Yeah, appreciate that, Fat Rat. I'm gonna go see if I've read it. You know, obviously I can't recall it, but that's fine. If I do, I will only after I, checked it out. Appreciate that. How's this shit possible though, man? When you think about it, you just really think about some shit. It's only possible, man, because I think for the most part we're allowing shit to happen the way it's happening. We aren't acting, on those things that we all know internally we supposed to be on, but we tend to let our minds, outweigh or, persuade us to not listen to, our internal voice, the ancestors, if you will, God, if you will, That's some crazy work, man. I'm just thinking about these containers and you hearing these noises in these containers, and these men who work on these docks are prohibited from opening a container that has noises coming out of it. How do they sleep at night? Some would say just quite well. They're getting paid the next day or later in the week, no stress, I don't know, man. That's some sad shit if you ask me, man. That's sad shit. Henry, man, what it do, loved one? Henry Sadello said, man, peace and blessings, brother Bub. Salute to the chat. One love to all, man. I hear you, bro. I hear you. If such a thing is possible, I'm pretty sure a lot of us would like to see that. You know what I mean? I'm not wholly and totally against that, what I do recognize in that regard, the people of the world, is that, man, we're all being played. That's a fact. We're all being played. And that's some messed up shit, man, that we all falling for the okie doke, or that we're not all waking up as we should, to overthrow this corruption. It's some crazy shit, man. But great point, Henry. Appreciate you. Uber Snipe said, man, spooks at the door, man. Spooks at the door. I wish. Shit. Farad said, man, coercive imperialism. Coercive imperialism, all right? U.S. food, financial aid, birth control, economic warfare, demographic manipulation. Oh, man, it goes on and on to the break of dawn, y'all. But every bit of what you said, Fat Rat, is every bit of what's taking place. That's for damn sure. And hey, man, they'll tell you with a straight face, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. You're, what you've been smoking, you're tripping. We don't do that. This is America, Every bit of what you name is every bit of what's happening. 2026, 2026. Yeah, man. We got them up. We got them, I call them snooks. Lisa Moore, the word you put, I have to use it like that because, man, they be tripping on little shit like that. Or I could say raccoon, you know what I mean? a raccoon. But yeah, I call them snooks. SNOOC. Okay, plural, but it's all good. Yeah, man. They are everywhere. And again, we have to really just, hey, man, call a duck, man. Strike a strike, and a spade. The fact of the matter, it ain't just our people, but because we are of the melanated persuasion, I'm talking about our people. But they're all walks of life, all people from all walks of life who do this to their own. No doubt. No doubt, man. They'll sell their own down the river, man, for the same shit that ours would do the same thing for. That's just what it is. And I hate to say it like that. I say, well, that's just what it is, what it is. No, what did that mean? That's just what it is. Our people, man, just don't care. Some of them don't care. Don't care. Quinn and Zingas, I remember in the 1990s when they started recruiting young blacks in a neighborhood to the FBI. They had a big ass sign on Crenshaw and Adams. I couldn't believe it. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I couldn't believe when I first read that entertainers, comedians, movie stars, actors and athletes were working for the FBI as well as the CIA. I couldn't believe that shit when I read that. My thing was, who wants to be a CIA agent? But damn, the truth of the matter is, yeah, a lot of our people are that, and you wouldn't be the wiser, man. You wouldn't be the wiser. And the coldest part about it is they actually believe what they would have come out of their mouths. I love this country. This is the greatest country on the world, and you're not going to destroy it, not if I can help it. Yeah, they actually do exist. They do actually exist in our communities too. Be surprised, y'all. You be surprised who them people is. Thank you for that, Queen and Zinga. Lisa Moore said they all work together. Even Children's Services is down with that trafficking, selling children for money. I got wind of that, I think a day or two ago. Couldn't believe it. I says, you say what? The child services people working against the parent to take the child so that they could do their little twist. Make money. Cold shit. Real live cold shit, man, going on. And we stuck on this shit. We got yeah, man, shit. I don't know. Farad said, for sure, man, keep in mind the attempt to sterilize Kissinger's true intent, the 1%. Absolutely. And again, I think that when, like for instance, when we're talking about the 1% and how they really truly get out, when we get information or access to, let's say, the Epstein file type shit, man, that's intentional. That's not a slip. That it's really not. It's really not. They're okay with that because I think in their way they're cleaning house. You know what I mean? They're going to clean house to some extent, to some degree. And then for those in the Epstein files who actually could hurt them, they're dead. Some of them women who actually, had some good shit were dead, are dead. A couple of them died right before they were supposed to testify, shit like that. A sister, and you could tell she was scared as hell. So I'm thinking, damn, man, I don't know why you waiting it long. Hey, but where could she go? Where could any of them go and say, hey man, you can't even go to a news station, y'all, with fire like that and think that it's gonna be okay. Your story's gonna get out. That's not how that really works. You know, you can't go to a police department and say, hey, put me in a cell because I have some information and hey, I need protecting. For real? Sandra Bland your ass. You gonna go in that mug, you're not gonna come out alive. You know what I mean? This is how it works. I mean, the movies, again, they're movies, and a lot of us tend to take them for just take them at entertainment value, you know. But they have these type of agents. They can go any fucking where they want. And then if they say you didn't see me, you didn't see nothing, that's what the hell that watch sergeant's gonna say, the captain, the chief of police, all of them. I don't know nothing, didn't see nothing. There's so many levels to this shit. But hey man, that shit was exposed because hey, the 1% said, give them something, let's excite them. Or let's distract them. We can afford to let this come out. We got so many other places and individuals who run our operations. Jeffrey's nothing. In fact, is he okay over there? You know what I mean? Let's keep him distracted, while we do what we're doing. By the time they get wind of this or, somebody stumbles upon it, we'll already be 6 months, a year into this thing. Nothing they'll be able to do. That's how they think, man. That's how they get down. That's how they get down. Henry asks, man, Brother Bub, do you know the movie Hostel? I know white men have places like that or similar to the place and activities in that particular movie. Yeah, I know the movie you're talking about, bro. We watched that movie, my wife and I was like, oh shit. And we've had these conversations. We're pretty sure, hey, yeah, we're pretty sure they exist. I think shit like that, this is shit, man, that is occurring. And you can really only get access to it. It depends on who and you got to know that, they got shit so well lined up that if they, they don't want to tolerate you, man, they won't. Get you on out the way right quick. Yeah, Farad said Hostel was definitely revealing. Yeah, I think I might watch that again too. I don't know, but see, that's just the tip of the iceberg. I think shit like that. You know what I mean? I think there are a lot of reasons for these abductions. These kidnappings, these missing children. There's a lot. It ain't just for perverts. You know what I mean? It ain't just for consumption, or it's not just for medical experimentation. You know what I mean? It's for a lot of shit. It ain't just for having a personal slave. You know what I mean? It's a lot of shit. If your imagination, you can think it up, it's probably for that. You know what I mean? A lot of shit, man, is being done, or they're being utilized for a lot of things, man. Again, if your imagination is wide open, you think of some weird shit, because we all have that ability. Let's be straight. That what if becomes a probability. A probability. You think it, then someone has already thought it and is actually doing it. That's how crazy this shit is, man. I'm telling you. All right, IMH. He said, man, back online. What it do, family? Good to see you back up in here, man. All right. Yeah. That's where we're at. We're talking about subliminal everything. It ain't just in the movies. There's a lot of sublime shit happening, man. There are all kind of subliminals. Everywhere you look is something. But you got to look at it. You got to, in a lot of ways, read between the lines, man. And again, just, hey, just look at some shit. Use your imagination. Like, what the fuck? You probably shocked yourself. You know, you'll shock yourself, no doubt. The sound of freedom. Let me write that down. Okay. Yeah. You say I see Kissinger name in this chat. Says a lot on the topic. Oh, he was a cold piece, man. What we're talking about, not just Kissinger, but we know Fat Rat Man. I was hoping he'd go and drop some shit up in there about old Kissinger. But I was saying Kissinger and Nixon was a cold pair. Also, I think that, and see, a lot of people, I'm going to tell you, Brzezinski, that was Jimmy Carter's boy. I think they was some cold pieces too, bro. I really do. They try to paint this picture of Jimmy Carter being, one of the best presidents the nation has known. Yeah, one of the best presidents for who? For who? He had a hand in making sure that our brothers and sisters across the water and our brothers and sisters here in the United States did not unite because they saw that as a threat. And so they did whatever they did. This memorandum, I forget the name of it. Oh my God, I just had it actually. Hey, y'all got so many notes around here, man. It's crazy. Delusion into convenience. Okay, I thought I had it around here. That's not it. I know where I left it at. Anyway, there's a certain memorandum that Jimmy Carter had signed off on, and it dealt. Oh, I know where to find it at. Hold on. I was toying with this thing. Excuse me. A chance. Okay. Bam. Okay, what we got? Okay. Well, I thought I'd find it here, but it's not here. Brzezinski, I know that fool anyway. Patrice Lumumba, CIA right there, y'all, at work. It was something, you guys. It was some type of memorandum that Jimmy Carter signed off on, and it called for the United States, the agencies, all the surveillance agencies, spy agencies, to make sure that they kept a wedge between us and our brothers and sisters across the water to prevent us from unifying. Because if we were to do so, we'd be the threat that they wouldn't be able to get rid of. Because, us coming together would be not just an economic threat, but a political threat, a world threat, shit, a people threat, So I wasn't surprised when I read that. And I'll more than likely, I'll have the name of it tomorrow because I know I got it written down somewhere. Anyway, in any respect, I think he was he was a sinister individual too. And his boy Brzezinski, this guy was I don't know, man. He was a Russian or he was something, man. But he was some type of, if you ask me, some type of Jewish person. But he was a cold piece. Most of them are. Most of them are, cutthroat type of, individuals. But yeah, man, I thought Jimmy Carter was a cold piece. I thought Nixon and Kissinger was bad. Dick Cheney and Bush, I thought they were bad. But hey, man, it's cold people in our time, man. Anyway, you going to say I'm H. You say I see Kissinger name in this chat, says a lot on the topic. A lot of rituals happening. And that's the gist of it, especially when we're talking about who's missing and how many of them, become missing every year. They're not found again. Some of them, for the most part, a lot of them, what they try to do. And I noticed how they try to confuse the numbers. They say, well, if it's 400,000 in a year that come up missing, X amount are runaways, and they'll be found sooner or later. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, that's some hood shit, right? And this is how they do it. They'll label them runaways. It makes you think, man, that even when civil servants, black and whites, those in blue, run across runaways, what do they really do with them? Do all of them go to group homes, juvenile halls until something, or do they get dropped off somewhere to a connection or something? I'm just saying, I don't know. But it's something that, we shouldn't just disregard as, oh, that's fantasy. You're just a little bit overboard there, bud. No, man. No. That's like saying, okay, Rampart Division, who would have thunk it that they, would have been pushing like they've been pushing? What sheriff department was that? I think it was Firestone or Lennox. One of them in the game. Who would have thunk it? No, don't put none past them, man. Don't put none past them. Exactly, not for us. Fat Rat said, man, for comprehensive purposes, everybody. Fat Rat says, for comprehensive purposes, we have to pose the question, what is the aim and purpose of white supremacy? Go back and watch Birth of a Nation. Damn, that's crazy. I don't know, man. This shit is hitting on all cylinders. So I don't know why it's in my feed. Birth of a Nation. I swear to you, man, yesterday as well as today, I said, okay, I'm gonna have to watch it. I don't watch that type of shit. I think I watched that shit a long time ago. I'm doing my life sentence and I went on and watched it, but and I told myself, I ain't gonna watch that shit again, But yeah, it may be worth watching again, or it may be worth watching for a lot of us, understanding what that movie really represents, what it's saying, or how you can you come to understand what white supremacy really is all about for them. Or as Fat Rat put it, what is the aim? Huh. Now, IMH said white supremacy was born to die in its own ignorance. Not even all white folks are on that type of time, but you can't easily tell which ones are who. Yeah, no. Thank you, Polish. In that area, Eastern Europe, somewhere in that area, though. Yeah, thanks a lot, man. But yeah, a lot aren't on that time, like actually really active and about it like that. But I think psychologically, or even inherently, in some aspects, in terms of DNA and all, it's in them. It's in them. I think that it's just that a lot of them wear their mask really well. Really, really well, man. Really well. Zygmunt Brzezinski. Yeah, I'll never forget that guy. I always thought he was a sinister individual, Fat Rat. I ain't gonna lie, man. And I swear, man, when I aligned him with that dude, Jimmy Carter, I knew Jimmy Carter was a piece of shit. His brother was a stumped down racist. Stumped down. Now, the apple don't fall far from the tree, man. Or, them apples on them, hey, they up there together, man. Georgia, come on. I wouldn't give a damn. Come on. And I don't mean to make like either that Georgia was worth, because they come from all over. Nebraska, or they shit. Hey, Illinois, all over, man. Shit. That shit is all over this country. Yeah. Anyway, you say Brzezinski was a Polish-born American political scientist, professor, and strategist. Yeah. I always saw him as a cold piece, man. Never trust that guy. Oh, there we go. IMH said it was the National Security Council memorandum. Thank you, sir. 46, the NSCM 46, issued on March 17th, 1978, under the Carter administration. Amen. Now, again, see, we tend to think that, oh, that's a good. Our people got this shit bad too. So I was watching one. This when Carter died. I was just watching this last night. And so what they did, and I saw how the media was, these, you know, the cameramen, the journalists, they were going to all black people because black people attended the funeral, or, you know, or wanted to in any respect. They were talking to a lot of black women. How did you feel about Jimmy Carter? You know, some of these women were older, you know, were older than me for sure. Oh, he was such a great president. I love Jimmy Carter. He was this nation's great. And I'm like, wow, you ignorant poor soul. You know, you know, and that's how a lot of our people are about these people. Well, a lot of them are just the same way, even about Obama. Black president, yeah, man, the brothers in the White House, da 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 da. I didn't think even if brothers knew what Obama's role really was and the harm and damage he did to the people, but he didn't do that could have helped the people, they still be like, ah, man, it's all right, man. That's Obama, man. It's a brother. You know, that's some sad shit. That's some sad shit, man. Moms don't care, man. You know. Hey, I make you ain't lying. That type of last name, man, sends a red flag. Hey, every time, bro. Every time, man. I was thinking, we were talking about Bill Gates, and I appreciate that info. You know how you drop that in there. Get down, Fat Rat. Bill Gates' participation with bio experimentation and shit like that. You know, the shit he's involved in now. You know, and again, I'm telling y'all some cold shit. Population control, biochemical type shit that he does. I recall reading somewhere he was spending a lot of time in Ukraine. And this was before the shit took off. You know, guns started being fired and the bombs and, you know, drones. And I'm like, what the fuck? You know, Ukraine, you know. Then I learned that Ukraine is a hub for a lot of biochemical laboratories for the CIA and others. All right. And others, you know, American, you know, black ops type shit. So I'm like, you kidding me? And no, initially when Russia started taking off, they were bombing these facilities. And then Russia put it out there and say, hey, man, the world don't even know that the United States could do all their experimentation, the biochemical experimentation of biowarfare, you know, in Ukraine. And I recall the government sidestepping it and instead throwing some executive under a bus. And was saying, oh, these are private corporations. They have nothing to do with us, you know. I said, oh, shit. Bill Gates used to visit Ukraine quite a bit, you know. There are other places he goes. Africa was also a spot he was in quite a bit until, you know, all this shit started happening a few years back where he understood that, you know, the passes he was getting to, I don't know, experiment, you know, were being revoked. You know, and he, you know, found himself eventually being kicked out, him and his wife and the NGOs that he had over there. So I'm like, I'm not surprised, man, by none of this shit that's taking place, man. And a lot of the shit that's taking place is being done specifically specifically to control people, you know, and I mean not, I mean, man, in ways where scores of people are eventually going to come up short, because it really doesn't do any good to, you know, you can't, you know, knock off, you know, 1 million people, and you know you have a population, you know, world population, then 8 billion people, and you think 1 million does damage, puts a dent in something? No, it don't. You know, so I'm pretty sure they're trying to figure out not just the right get down virus or whatever, but the mechanism, you know, to expose it or put it out there so that it does its work. You know, it does its work. Oh, and speaking of the COVID-19, I read something today where some department, some agency, was it the FDA? They were saying, was it the FDA? I forgot what agency. Anyway, they were saying if you got that shot, then you're no longer considered a human being, because they're insinuating that in that shot was nanotechnology. You know, that's what they're insinuating, you know. So I'm like, damn, ooh, we dodged another bullet. You know, I'm just saying, man. Fat Rat said, man, advisor to LBJ, 1973, he co-founded the Trilateral Commission with David Rockefeller from 73 to 76, where he first recruited Jimmy Carter, the governor. And you're talking about Brzezinski, I think, yeah. IMH said Obama was a destructive individual, a psychological mind fuck, all right, pushing the rainbow worldwide. Oh, man, did he try to do a number on Africa? And then he sanctioned them because they wouldn't allow LGBTQXYZ. You know what I mean? Ain't that some shit? So, you mean to tell me you can't have gays and fags? It's okay. We're not going to send no food. We're not going to do this. We not. I'm like, what, man? What? What? That's what he did do. And but again, you know, you say what you want, but the reality is, man, he like all the rest, is doing exactly what he's told. Straight up. They're doing exactly what the you know, sections of the playbook, you know, extracted, you know, compiled, put together, and slid to them exactly by the book. You know, yeah, you know, I don't know, crazy shit, right? But they tried to push that line on African countries. Why would they do that? But they found another way, and I'm thinking a lot of it have to do, yeah, with you know, because when you see that type of shit start to not just fester but grow and become this thing that really ultimately destroys society, right? When you see that type of shit, man, you got to expect that now, you know, or when that shit is allowed, now you got to expect AIDS, HIV to become a thing. You know what I mean? Where it starts to, you know, and who will it affect the most? The young population, right? When those African countries fought back, what they did though, they stopped pushing that. But you know what they pushed? They pushed pornography. They pushed pornography in them African countries. Real spit, man. And now, as a result, you have AIDS cases. AIDS is starting to resurface in these same countries, you know. In these countries, Ghana, Nigeria, you're starting to see AIDS re-emerge. Because now all of a sudden there's this promiscuous, you know, everybody's promiscuous. You know, I can't tell you whether or not that was something that was already in the film. It was. I never heard it, but I hear it now. I see it now. You know, they had the white guy a few months back going through all these African nations where these sisters are just so white guy come up and say, hey, you know, he go have sex with a man and he gives them AIDS, not HIV. Or was it HIV? In any respect, you know, there's no, you know, this is what's going on now, you know. But they send this guy over there, and he's the only one that got caught. So imagine they get 150 plane tickets, 250 plane tickets for individuals who have the HIV virus or AIDS, and they send them to them countries where sisters, you know, don't mind laying up with white boys for a few dollars. You know what I mean? And you know, I'm not just that's just not prevalent over there. It happens here too. You know, sisters do that shit every day here. You know, but again, and that's the thing I'm saying. I want to say when I get back with our sister Yacinda, I want to have that discussion. But this is AIDS being spreaded. They weren't able to do it through homosexuality. You know what I mean? Because it's a crime over there. You get caught with that, doing that over there, your ass going to jail. They ain't playing, and I love them for that. Yeah, all right. But now they got all this promiscuity jumping off, where you know just sex everywhere. You know what I mean? And you got these Europeans, you know, these others, what flying in, and they flying in with the AIDS virus or the HIV virus, and they're infecting our brothers and sisters. You know, crazy work, man. Also in Texas, there's that there's supposed to be, you know, the reemergence or the resurgence of HIV in Houston specifically. I'm like, God damn, okay. And it is, you know, I'm just saying. But all this shit is taking place, man, for a reason. You know, old Cigarette Berry, he tried to get the brothers and sisters over there to be, to allow, you know, had the government tried to twist the government's arm to allow LGBTQWXYZ, y'all know. And they fall back against that. And I think that they found another way. And I think that, you know, they made, you know, over in Africa, pornography is a real thing over there now. You know, and that's like, whoa. And, you know, you have these AIDS cases and shit jumping off, HIV and shit jumping off. You know, they found ways in, man. They found ways in. That's for damn sure. Yeah, man. Obama was a destructive individual, a psychological mind fuck, pushing the rainbow worldwide, destabilizing African economies on West Africa with AFRICOM, the Libyans with Gaddafi, etc. Yeah, that was, you know, I mean, it's cold no matter how you look at it, especially with what he's done to all of them. But damn, man, couple all that with how he did Gaddafi and what Gaddafi wanted to do, but you know, his orders were to kill him, you know, to get rid of him, to prevent him from doing all the things that could have very well benefited, you know, the melanated people, man. That's some cold shit. And yeah, he don't have no, you know, shit. Ask him if he have any remorse. You can tell Secret Service to shoot your ass. You say anything crazy. Yeah, man. Wow. Man. Hey, you know, any chance we get Fat Rat to go in on OCB, we do, man. You know, because I'm one like the rest of y'all. I never liked the guy. I always thought he was a plant. You know, and I'm not fooled by his girl either. I used to be. Thought she's a beautiful sister. You know, I thought she the one that gave him his strength, you know, and gave him his likability. You know what I mean? And the more I watched her and checked her out, you know, I was like, oh shit, you too. Yeah. It's all good though, man. All good. Lisa Moore said, Brother IMH and Brother Fat Rat, you kings on point tonight. I salute you guys. Stay there you go. Solid wall time, sister. Yeah. Respect. There you go. All right, I may say, man, look up Hillary Kaprowski, the one many believe is the one who started it with the polio vax. Fat Rat said, man, listen, check out that NSCM 46 distrust of black leadership, covert neutralization, and prevent coalition. And that's that part, that 46, that memorandum, that what they call the NSCM 46. And you got to know, man, that's still, again, that, you know, that was for then. Then you had what they passed just this year. But you got to know, man, that there's still all kind of memorandums put out, secret or otherwise, that says, you know, pretty much what that one said in 78. The objective is to make sure we remain divided. You know, that's a fact. You know, because the fact of the matter is, unified, you know, united, we're more than a threat. You know, we're their demise. You know, that white supremacy construct, that would be the end of it. You know, and we don't have to wait for it to implode on itself or just wither away. We would do that. That thing would end, boom, right then and there. You know, and they're aware of that. Them, the 1% or whoever, you know, that's their greatest fear. And this is why we see a lot of what we see taking place in our communities. It's done intentionally. It's done on purpose. You know, the first time, man, that we learned to not be distracted by distractions, and we start addressing this real shit, they know the jig is up. They know the jig is up at that point in period. All right, y'all. This was a good conversation. I enjoyed it. Fat Rat, thanks for coming in here, man, and dropping it. You too, IMH, man. Good to see you back. You know, you're back online. So, hey, man, on the morrow, let's meet up here again. Let's touch bases with one another. And, hey, you know, yeah, just inform each other. Let's inform one another. Appreciate that. You know, each and every one of us should appreciate it. A lot of our people didn't come in tonight, but we love them nonetheless. I want to send shouts out and just, you know, just think about some of our people. Kimberly Mitchell, man, C1. We didn't see Polk tonight. Or did we? I don't recall Polk coming in here tonight. Alonzo, you know, a lot of others. Brother Al, I haven't talked to Brother Al in a while. And so sending shout out to Brother Al. May everything be everything with you and your family, brother, and your young kings. You know what I mean? So until tomorrow, everybody, you know the business. Love yourself, man. Love each other. Take care of yourself so that time comes, you'll be able to take care of one another, man, or someone else that very well may need your support. That being said, power is in the people, everybody, all right? Power is in the people. One love, be one equals black first. You are, you have been, and you will be under the groove. Love and respect, everybody. See you on tomorrow.
Count the names, count the bodies, count the victory. Cullen Hughes, Hurston, writing future history. From the Apollo to the Borough to the Sphere, where the echo of those Harlem nights still ringing clear. So when they ask what happened in those tenement flats, between the spirituals and where consciousness is at, tell them we transformed suffering to scholarship and song. Tell them we've been telling you we're brilliant all along. The Renaissance will prologue every decade since the sequel. Every black child born's continuation of the people who survived the Middle Passage, survived the Jim Crow laws, and built magnificence from nothing but their vision and their flaws. That's in the sergeant. This is once a less than Panthers, hats, and Mercedes. Please don't you, I can't stop us. Power sensitive plot to the applause for polls. Need your data, tropes, and constantly problem when the wet just wanna build the season bait. Now don't get the pause. It's just erasing up the times. Plead the ruckus off the main. Make it honor fans. Turn and neck and love the durn. Suffer like the kesha. You went from the preaching up on side as each alone, but on the shit and untrue seeing vets. Someone the very inch on Gary Land. Be hell in heaven, you see what the Bonavir. It waits up for the Margaret to keep him full the trumpets on the boards to the singer land is carried open stone to keep us looking on my mother record channel resi for the he and let the peasant be is every time we keep a spawn.